lived through a revolution and a war?
Well, yeah.
Wow.
So it's true what people say. Iranians have no manners whatsoever.
Hi everyone, my name is Liam and welcome to Cinostalgia, a new video series here on Cinemagic TV in which we highlight international films from years gone by that continue to entertain and resonate with audiences today. In our latest edition, we will discuss the animated drama Persepolis. Today I'm joined by Shayna, and in this edition we're going to go through our usual categories, so favourite scene, favourite line and favourite character. So Persepolis, this was released in 2007 and is co-directed by Marjane Satrapi and Vincent Paronnaud. It's adapted from Satrapi's autobiographical French graphic novels of the same name. And the story tracks a young girl's upbringing in the midst of the Iranian Revolution and the Iran-Iraq War, and the struggle she faces as she enters adolescence and early adulthood. Just to give a few quick background details in the film, the graphic novels came about through Satrapi's desire to make her reading as accessible as possible. The film boasts a 2D animation style with dominant black and white colours. And there's a quote from Satrapi here which reads, "With live action, it would have turned into a story of people living in a distant land who don't look like us. At best, it would have been an exotic story, and at worst, a third world story." And the success of Persepolis manifested in a nomination at the Academy Awards in 2008 for Best Animated Feature. So, in terms of initial impressions, Shayna, had you heard this film before, and what were your main takeaways from Persepolis?
Hi, well, I actually haven't heard of this film before you recommending it. So when I heard of it, I read this description and I thought, oh wow, this seems to be really interesting. And my first thoughts were that it was very interesting and it's very educating, and it's an autobiographical animated film, and I loved the way it was told. And with Marjane telling us her story, I thought it was great to watch her grow up. And although I don't actually watch many films with such political content, I thoroughly enjoyed watching this, and I found certain moments of it to be very humorous as well. So I think it's very important that people watch this too. So yeah.
Yeah, great. No, it's great to hear that you enjoyed it. I actually caught this film a few years ago in college. We had to watch it and we analysed it in different ways. I think this film is a really compelling commentary on the issues facing Iranian women in the latter half of the 20th century in particular, but it's got a very personal touch. I think there's a lot of complexity in its depiction of having to transition between different societies, which can actually prove to be quite repressive, but in various ways, as well as the extent to which one can kind of stand up to oppression and discrimination, especially as a woman. So, favourite scene, Shayna, which moment in this?
The moment that I remember the most is when Marjane sang Eye of the Tiger in the most horrendous voice I had ever heard. And it was amazing. It gave me a good laugh. Honestly, I think her interest in punk music really added to her character, and it was very fun to have scenes like these break up the more serious situations. And I think also the way that she told her relationship with Marcus was also very entertaining, because we got to see how she first saw him and how she fell in love with him. But then after they broke up, even the animation perceived and remembered him much uglier than how we first met him. And I thought that the visual storytelling alongside Marjane's narration was very appealing indeed as well.
Well, we're in agreement with our favourite scene, because I also picked this one, the Eye of the Tiger moment. It's, well, almost like the dream beforehand as well, in combination with that. I think this is quite, like, even though it's animated film, I think it's really important to highlight this. Animated film doesn't always mean it's a kid's film. It's just that animation is the style that to which the director thought was best to tell a certain story. And Persepolis does have quite a lot of harrowing moments, but this scene where Marjane, the protagonist, seems to be at a real low in her life. And then all of a sudden she wakes up from this dream and she just gets the sense of defiance and finds her voice again. And the use of Eye of the Tiger is kind of ironic, because it's sort of perceived as quite like a masculine sort of macho song. You know, it's using Rocky 3 and sort of a signature training montage song. But here, as you say, the fact that she sings so off key, which was deliberate, it makes it feel more realistic as well. Yeah. And there's also kind of little bits of humor with like trying to prep herself and then like waxing her legs and that kind of stuff, and being startled by it. And the clumsiness, I think, really helps elevate that scene in terms of the humor. But there's actually a lot of like it's a very cathartic moment for Marjane as well. So yeah, that seemed to me to stand out for sure. Favorite character, Shayna, who did you resonate with the most in this film in terms of the individuals?
Honestly, I feel like my favorite character would be Marjane, mostly because I can relate to how she can be repressed or just put down by other people in society, mostly by just being a woman in general as well. And I also liked her grandmother, to be honest, because I liked how they were able to build a close bond with each other in that relationship. And I really think that actually both of them together is like such a great dynamic, and it makes me think about my grandmother as well. And I think those two are my favorite characters. I couldn't pick between them, so
I would go for Marjane as well. I think she's a superbly character, and to see her gradual evolution through the film is really rewarding by the end. She's got flaws, but I think it's important for a protagonist to have flaws, but also to be consistently admirable. You know, the way she takes advice from her quite progressive family relatives. I would say her grandmother there in particular is a notable figure in her life. And she also is quite unique, I think, in terms of like typical protagonist because of her nationality and also her obsession with Western pop culture. Like, it really makes her stand out above many of the protagonists we see, even female protagonists. Like, since this film, we've actually seen quite a lot of female protagonists in animated films and mainstream cinema, which is great, but she really still stands out above all of them just because of her quite eccentric taste and individuality. Okay, and favorite line now, Shayna, was there any quote from the film or any phrase that, again, you connected with strongly?
At the very end, Marjane says that freedom always has a price, and I thought that was very meaningful. And it points out that how you always will have to make a sacrifice, like how her mother fainted when she left for Vienna, and how she never got to see her grandmother before she died before leaving for France in her 20s. And I think that line, it's really something to take into account when you learn about people who've gone through so much. Like, they have had to pay so much for that freedom to get past it, and it's really great to think about.
Yeah, it's a great pick there. It really captures that kind of sense of like adversity and the sacrifice, as you say, that many people have to make to progress depending on their circumstances. I have picked a line here from Marjane's grandmother, and she says to her at one point in the film, "In life, you'll meet a lot of jerks. If they hurt you, tell yourself that's because they're stupid. That will help keep you from reacting to their cruelty, because there is nothing worse than bitterness and vengeance. Always keep your dignity and be true to yourself." I think that quote really captures, first of all, the kind of the humor of the grandmother at times, you know, the alluding to the romance and, you know, having kind of a dig at like the patriarchal dominance in Iranian society. But it's also born out of painful past memories regarding the treatment of women in Iranian society. And I think it's also pivotal to Marjane's actions in latter stages of the film as well. So I think that's a quote that really packs a punch. And our last category now is going to discuss how we think the film has aged since its release. So it's not an old film, it's only from 2007. But I think, and Sean, I'll start with you here. I think this film still resonates very deeply today. What do you think about that?
I think it has aged very well, in the sense that it is still relevant today, and it will still be relatable to certain people out there who would live in the same situation as Marjane herself. And the fact that she told her story through this animation, I mean, like, it's also beautifully drawn, and it took, whatever, I think it was like 3 years to make this, and I think all of the effort was worth it, and because it came out as a very imaginative film, and the juxtaposition as well of the color and the black and white and the usage of these colors to differentiate within the past and the present was a technique I also really found fascinating about it. And I just really like the way the film goes through Marjane's turbulent journey as she grows up, and she tells it in a really original, brilliant animated film with a balance of drama and reminiscence and cultural awareness. And I think it has aged well as well, because you're just interested in it for the whole 90 minutes that it runs. And I think it's really relevant today. So
yeah, I think so many aspects of this film hold up. I think the animation, because how, like, it's 2D and we've seen a shift towards 3D animation in last 20 years in particular, but the 2D animation, because it's such a striking use of kind of muted colors, it complements the narrative so beautifully. But as you mentioned, the thematic kind of material of the film, that reminiscence and the coming of age story it's being told, it just feels so personal. Like, this is where you see a director take life experiences and harness them into this 90-minute feature. So absolutely. I think Persepolis deserves to be seen by an even bigger audience. It managed to transcend beyond like Iranian cinema into the mainstream in the West. But I think it's one of those films that, as you mentioned earlier on, Shayna, it's so insightful and is really a great educational tool for aspiring cinephiles today. So, Shayna, thanks ever so much for coming on board this episode. And
thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, and it's been a privilege. Great to have someone who's seen this film as well and who enjoyed as much as I did. And yeah, we both highly recommend Persepolis if you haven't had a chance to check it out. It's a really wonderful film. And thanks ever so much for watching this edition of Cinostalgia, and we'll be back soon.
Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.